Welcome to Pathways, a career podcast from the Idaho State University Career Center. I'm your host, Mark Beaver. Today, we're speaking with Stacey Barker, illustrator and artist and owner of Barking Goat Studios. Stacey never really knew what he wanted to do necessarily, but he knew what he loved to do. And through a lot of perseverance and confidence in himself, he's been able to carve out a really great niche doing exactly what he loves to do. Please settle in and listen to our conversation with Stacey. Hey Stacey, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming in. So, Stacey, I really wanted to have someone like yourself in. You kind of own your own business. You do stuff freelance. I haven't talked to a lot of people in your position, and I think it's really interesting, especially for folks who maybe are interested in, a small business, or even how to kind of, apply something like yourself, like an artistic ability. So can you start off by just kind of telling us basically like what you do kind of in a bird's eye view to begin with?
Yeah. I refer to myself as like an illustrator now, but I guess just art in general is a pretty good term. I mean, I've done just about everything. I've done some logos, like just kind of straight graphic design stuff. I've done a lot of typography, setting up posters and brochures. I've drawn pictures for t-shirts. I've done several paintings. I've got kind of like a illustration style I like, so that's kind of what had the most success with, I guess.
Right. And I think people would probably, if you've been around Pocatello, like you might even recognize Stacey's illustration style because you do a lot with kind of your company, Barking Goat. You do a lot of stickers, t-shirts. I see like your illustrations for a lot of, say, like events.
Yeah.
Like races and stuff. So yeah, you definitely kind of have done that. So what has that part of your job been like, kind of cultivating your business around yourself?
It's been pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing where there's not really a manual or a certain way to go through it. I mean, it's kind of totally all just almost wrapped around my personality kind of thing. Like, it started out with just more or less creating some t-shirts and some artwork for myself with no intention of selling them, and it kind of slowly grew where people were interested. And I mean, it's always kind of been geared around some environmental aspect or skiing or biking.
Yeah, there's always like some themes like nature, animals, and like outdoor activities are kind of some of the themes that I see.
Yeah, and it's kind of starting to lead to working a little bit with some conservation stuff, which is what I'm super interested in. So that's kind of what the aspect I want to push a little more. And
right, cool. So how, like, what are some things, like, I guess we can kind of go back a little bit then. When did you start getting into art? When did you kind of start going down this pathway?
I don't know, it's kind of weird. I think I've been drawing off and on my whole life. Like, I remember drawing a lot as a kid. And I think everybody has this where, like, you're in high school or junior high and it's grandparents or parents or somebody's like, you need a good job. You need to go to college. You need to do this. And I think we kind of get in these periods, or at least I did, where, like, you jump into college and you don't really have a clue what you want to do. I'll just take all the general eds. I'm getting pretty close to a degree now, and I don't really have a clue what I want to graduate in. So back up just a little bit. Like, I guess before I went to college, I was in the military for a while, and I got deployed and stuff, and I kind of always had art in the back of my mind. So I just figured, well, I tried the military, and I mean, it was fun, but now I want to try something else, and I've always wanted to try art, so I'll give that a shot. And went and got a couple degrees and just kind of slowly started pushing it a little more.
Yeah. What was the impetus to join the military?
It was kind of like a family tradition. Like, my grandpa was in World War II. My dad was in the military. I know my grandpa was a really big figure in my life. So I was like, yeah, I'll do the military and give it a try. And
Yeah. Was there, so that wasn't like, I mean, that is interesting that it was kind of like in the family more. But did you kind of already have in mind like things like the GI Bill and like how that might help you kind of move forward, or was it more
I
just
didn't
kind of
have a
like,
clue.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you get in the military and everybody has these long, like, patriotic spills. Like, I signed up because I want to do this, this, and this. I want to serve my country. I'm like, I mean, it's not that I didn't have that. I was like, I don't know, it just looked kind of cool at the
Yeah.
time, you know.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not necessarily the right mindset I have. I don't.
Sure.
I think, like, I've met so many people where they have this career track through almost junior high. Where like, I'm going to be a doctor.
Right.
I'm in these upper level classes now. And I'm like, I don't know how you came across. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. It's a hard thing. I mean, it's both commendable and incomprehensible for me to understand for how people who have that like kind of focus and drive for a young age.
yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to too is like having strong figures to help you mentor along the way.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a few memories like towards the end of high school and going into college where like taking math classes, like I was really into them, but at the same time, like there were certain periods where I would fail just because I got so bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, wow, this is like, we've done the same problem 1,000 times and I've got it memorized.
Yeah.
I just don't see the point of like
Right.
doing this repeatedly for a semester. And I don't know. So I guess there was always kind of like in the back of my mind, just trying to figure out how to throw some creative aspect into whatever I was doing.
Right. So yeah, you've never really been into like that kind of rote, repetitive type of job or class or
Yeah.
anything like that. Yeah. What did you, if anything, do you think that you like learned in the military that maybe you've been able to kind of apply going forward?
I mean, I got like a really good broad view of just different cultures, how people live their life.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's like some things that do take a lot of work, but I mean, if you try hard, you can get some kind of outcome from
Right.
it. But
Right.
I mean, at the same time too, like I've learned a lot of times, like sometimes you just have to fail at something to figure out if it's going to work or not, you know?
Yeah. What are some of those examples you have?
I read a lot, so it's like you look at a lot of like big sports athletes like Michael Jordan and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like you only really ever hear about like their greatest accomplishment,
Right.
you know, like I've had a lot of dud ideas, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to print 1,000 of these t-shirts and they're going to sell like crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Don't sell any of them.
You still got some of those in your garage, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I love that. There's, I think, a somewhat famous YouTube video that I think was an old Nike commercial. If people haven't seen it, they should look it up. It's Michael Jordan talking about all his failures.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like 40 seconds of him talking about all the shots he missed, all the games he lost, all the times he didn't make it, right? And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that's like, but if I wouldn't have done all those, I also wouldn't have gotten anything.
Right.
And so that whole idea of, I mean, I think that in our culture, failure is scary, right? Like no one wants to fail.
Right.
But once you can kind of start to contextualize a little bit that it's more almost like kind of like it's almost like a big science experiment in a way, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Put yourself out there, try something. If it doesn't work, what did you learn how to pivot?
Right.
You know? So I guess from some of those failures, like the ideas and stuff, is there anything from those that you kind of learned from and like kind of adjusted, moving on?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've kind of been doing that like super hard for the last like 5 years. Like I'll try something, I'm like, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I'll try to like tweak it and go to this next aspect. And like I had an art show in Victor a few years ago where I had all these fish, and I just thought, oh, this is going to be like this big breakthrough thing. All these fly fishermen really like going to be buying up these paintings. I don't think I sold one of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think like being in an art career, you kind of have to like work through some of those. Like,
Yeah.
you kind of have to have some thick skin. I mean, people are going to tell you your art sucks, but I mean, that's just part
But some
of it.
people are going to love it.
Yeah, I mean, some people do love it. And there's totally a bunch of trial and error steps you kind of have to step through. I mean, I've had a lot of people say, well, how do you start a career like that? And it's kind of really hard to just give like a little brief description, you know?
Sure.
I mean, everybody needs money, but at the same time, you know, like everybody kind of wants like a definitive step. Like,
Right.
I want to make $80,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's not like, when you get a job and you apply somewhere, like you have like kind of like a layout plan, like these are my benefits.
Right.
This is like how much I'm going to make. And this is like the day I start, you know?
Yeah.
When you're kind of starting like a business like I'm doing, like you can make money, but at the same time, like you don't just step in and like day one, like here's your paycheck, you know?
Right. Have you had jobs like that before? Like more like kind of salaried type?
Yeah, I haven't had salary, but I've had like hourly jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing for some people is like having that ability or that acceptance of the variability in their career. You know, like for some people, and this is just part of understanding your personality too, which I think is such a huge part of career development, is kind of figuring out like, well, you know, maybe I'm really into art, but do I need stability in my life? Do I need a job that says it starts on this date, you make $80,000 a year, here's your health insurance?
Yeah.
Right? Or are you saying I'm really into art and I want full creative control?
Yeah.
Because those two, I mean, you might find them both together, but they might be kind of two different paths to go down a little bit.
Yeah, and I think just the more I get into it, I think that's kind of where I thrive, is just being able to just be creative and do whatever I want, you know?
Yeah.
I've had quite a few jobs where like there's this tiny little slice of creativity,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's more kind of geared towards production base and stuff like that. And I don't know, the creative stuff is just what I thrive on, I think, the most.
Right. So with those jobs, so you still have, I mean, since I've known you, you've had other part-time jobs.
Yeah.
Kind of beside your creative hustle, I guess. So what, how does that work out for you? What's your, I mean, obviously like we need money, but like how have you been able to work that in and balance it?
It's kind of a give and take. I mean, there's been periods of like where there's a lot going on, and like, especially like when my kid was born, like you kind of focus on all your time with that. So there's not a lot of time for a creative outlet. So, I mean, it was a little easier just kind of go to like a 9-to-5 job, and then you can turn it off. Like the creative side at some point, like, especially when you're doing it at home, gets a little rough because it's always there, you know?
Right.
But I mean, it's all about balance, I guess. Just balancing between a part-time job and this.
Do you feel like you have to find a job that gives you like a little bit more like flexibility so that you can take opportunities when they arise for yourself?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, taking time off and being in the outdoors and stuff, I think, is pretty high up on the priority list for me. So, I mean, it's talking about like that kind of stuff with certain companies and corporations, I think, is a very fine line to walk, you know?
Yeah.
Some jobs you walk in and you've got a week off. Other jobs, it's kind of like a pay and grade kind of thing. Like you earn so much time off, you know? I mean, especially like there was a couple years ago, I went to a bunch of races, and it's like I wanted every weekend off.
Yeah.
And then extra time on top of that to get to them all. And I mean, and that adds up quite a bit, you know?
Right.
But I mean, whenever you look at someone's life too, no one ever sees the full picture, you know? They only see little slices here and there. I mean, someone might look at me and think, God, that guy doesn't work much, you know? But at the same time, like, no one's ever seen me staying up till like 4 or 5 in the morning to like finish projects, you know?
Right. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Stacey Barker. He's an illustrator and artist and owner of Bark and Goat Studios. So yeah, I would not believe that you don't work hard at all, because I think something that, I also think that it would be good for listeners to think about is the fact that what you just said is this is not a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, there's for one, you still have had a part-time job, or maybe even a full-time job, kind of with an actual company on the side. And so, for starters, that leaves you either your days off or evenings to really kind of work on your business and your craft. And that, coupled with the fact that you're going to have kind of like peaks and valleys.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. So like, I guess like with that kind of like, how do you factor that in when those come up? Like, I mean, because you have a wife, a kid, a job. So is that difficult, or how does that work for you?
It can be difficult. I mean, at the same time, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to balance it a lot better. Like, I used to just kind of do this like as a hobby here and there, and like it's pretty much like a full-time job now. And I've like had to, like, the job I'm filling in at part-time, I've kind of had to cut my hours back, because I mean, I do have to dedicate so much time to this. And I don't know, I mean, spending time with my family is pretty high up there. We like to hike and ski a lot. So like, there's a lot of times where I'm pretty much just working on like projects throughout the day. And then whenever I need to fill in on my other job too. So whatever like day on the weekend, like we're going to go skiing or hiking or whatever, like I can have like that day set aside so I can do that, because I don't know. Right.
How do you work that on your family? I mean, is it just like kind of a factor of communication and expectations that you and your wife have set up with each other? Or?
Yeah. I mean, it's always shifting. I mean, especially with like COVID, every year you're like, I don't know, your like ideas on like how stuff's going to operate changes a little bit. I mean, I don't think we ever expected we'd be in a pandemic for this long. So,
right. Well, still sitting here in masks.
Yeah.
This far into it. Yeah. I mean, I asked, like, you know this about me, but in the past I have, like, I also kind of started a similar kind of project on my own, where drawing and illustrating and having a small clothing company and trying to kind of expand into illustration and stuff. And I just found a lot of barriers for myself in kind of getting over the next step. And one of them was just that idea of like, this is another job on top of a job. So like factoring in time to hang out with my wife and kid, who I love to hang out with, was becoming kind of a point of friction. Sometimes like, do I, want to kind of pursue this thing a little more, or, be able, or I don't know, like kind of hand it off, like trying to figure out how to like hand off something in a more sustainable way. So these are all parts of trying to figure out that balance and how to cultivate a business out of something like illustrating.
Yeah, I think like I hit a point in my mind where I just like, I've kind of like pursued this off and on as a hobby for so long. I just knew like this is going to be a career. It's like no doubt in my mind. Like I just enjoy it too much.
When was that tipping point for you, do you think?
It's been a while, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like a slow build. I mean, you see like restaurants and businesses, they're like, this is our 1-year anniversary, I mean, people are like, how long have you been doing this? I'm like, I don't know, 15 years,
right?
Maybe, but it's like, it's a hard line to say, like, when does a business start?
Sure.
Sure.
Well, I mean, some people I think are very intentional about it.
Yeah.
Like they might, work with someone with a business degree to help them kind of put together a business plan and a structure. Have you done any of that, or are you just kind of letting it kind of evolve?
Little bit, and it's been an up and down rocky road. Like, I've listened to a podcast about like a lot of like entrepreneurial kind of stuff. And it's a lot of it's like literally just kind of like stepping off into the dark, but it's gonna work. Like there's certain kind of like trial and error steps where like you kind of have to fall on your face to go through it to like get to the next step.
Right. So like a lot of like perseverance through like those times of self-doubt and hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was another for myself, again, speaking from my own experience, that overcoming that hump from being someone who loved this purely from a creative side, and kind of like yourself, like I've been drawing since I can remember and have, like kind of dabbled in it for like posters and other people's events and things. And at one point was like, well, I'm going to maybe try to actually focus a little bit more on my style, kind of craft like a little bit of a brand name and, put it out there. But the business step, like like people talk about having a math brain or not a math brain. And I don't know if it's not necessarily my brain, but it's my actual interests.
Yeah.
I am not interested in crafting a business from like a business perspective. Like I don't have social media. I don't want to engage on social media. There's just like these things that are like, oh man, I don't know. I'm not big enough to like hire someone to do these things. So what have been some of those hurdles for you? I think that things you've had to learn along the way.
It's all been a struggle. I mean, social media is it is what it is. Like,
it's kind of a necessary part of the
a necessary evil. Like, I love it. At the same time, sometimes it's just a little too much, It's almost like overwhelming. You're just kind of always being bombarded with pictures and words. But at the same time, I think that's definitely what's helped grow some of my success.
Yeah, it has to be. That's
like,
how the word gets out now.
Like, a little of it's been through word of mouth and kind of like seeing me around town, but like 99% of it's through social media, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, that's like, has there been any other kind of business aspects that you've been like, is there anything that you've learned that you actually enjoy that from like the business side that you didn't really think about before?
When some people hire me, like, I guess this isn't really like a business, like on the business side of it, but just like what I do in the business, like some people hire me like for my style, and they have like a loose idea of what they want. But like when it comes down to it, they want me to just basically do whatever I want. And like some people you kind of have to like feel out, some people are trying you to like see what you can come up with, but you can kind of like get a feeling like when you're working with somebody like this is going to be cool. Because you just know you can do whatever you want and they're going to love it.
You feel like you're kind of like vibing on like what kind of things you like and what they're thinking for their motif.
When you know someone's just going to let you loose and just do whatever you want, that's like, I don't know, the coolest thing.
Yeah, I bet. So talking about like this kind of evolution of style and branding, if someone is just purely kind of like, man, I love to draw, I love to paint, I love to design, but kind of like focusing in a little bit more on figuring out your style and kind of your realm is going to be important. And I think that, most people might kind of learn that whether they're taking, maybe if they're taking art classes, I don't know. I was an art major for a semester and then ended up with an art minor, but I don't think I really heard about personal branding much, or developing really your style in that way. But I guess for you, like you have a pretty distinct style like that we just talked about, but you've been drawing forever. And like myself, I'm sure there's been a progression.
Yeah.
So what were some of your early styles and what has that evolution been?
When I was a kid, I was kind of drawing, I think, some of the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then when I went to art school, I learned a lot. I went to ISU, and there's kind of like a mentality where like everything kind of has to have like a deeper meaning kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't necessarily create it with the intent to sell.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, for a while when I was going to art school, I kind of went down a rabbit hole thinking I was going to be some like wild abstract painter or something, I'm just going to make 6-foot paintings and throw paint at the wall.
Yeah. Which I love to do as well.
Yeah. And it's super like fun and therapeutic, but no one wanted to buy any of those, what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like, well, maybe I should like just pursue some of these like cartoon characters, like just for fun, because that's what I did before. And then like, I don't know, it kind of just picked up steam from there.
Has the outdoors aspect always been part of that? Because I know, like, we're talking about how you love to get outside. Like, you and I kind of know each other from, our worlds of outdoor recreation a little bit. Has that kind of worked its way in over the past few years?
Yeah, I think, like, it's kind of like, I don't know, there's always, like, certain key points in your life, I think, that kind of steer you one way or another, you know? Like, I was kind of like a, I don't know, metalhead for a while, and not super outdoorsy, but then I was slowly getting back into it, getting into backpacking and stuff, and then snowboarded for a while, and then, like, met my wife, and she was, like, super into skiing, so I switched and started skiing, and then, like, I don't know, we started hiking and backpacking more, so it's this progression. I mean, I was super into backpacking and stuff as a kid, and then kind of go in and out of phases, but I don't know, being outside now is just everything to me. It seems like I just love it. So
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think we've talked about this too outside of this, that I too, when I was young, was much more in like a music scene. And for me, it was kind of punk rock and later hip hop. But yeah, much more kind of guided by that stylistically. And then at one point kind of had a environmental awakening a little bit in my grad school, and kind of all of a sudden started spending a lot more time outdoors, but also just like really taking in what was around me in like complete awe, if it was the way water was moving, down a canyon, or like how the light was hitting canyon walls, or just the way, a sunbeam would highlight a mountain, or how like amazing an animal can be. So like these things kind of started to, like, I couldn't help but incorporate these more because I was just amazed by them all the time, and that's where I was spending my time.
Right.
Which definitely led me to kind of like have kind of a certain style, and then I wanted to kind of like, that started like kind of coupling that with my love for outdoor recreation, thinking about where do these things meet. But it's interesting how you have those a little bit. But did you think that there was going to be like a market?
Not really. I mean, it's all kind of just progressed slowly over time.
Yeah.
I kind of got involved with a running club a little bit and did little things with them. And then, like, that slowly progressed. And then I did like a logo for a marathon. And then I did a logo for a bike race. And it's kind of just really been like a slow push. I mean,
it's kind of snowballs.
Yeah.
But it's all from you kind of putting yourself out there and kind of believing in your talent, but also not being scared. I think that's such a big thing for creative types, is that idea you're saying of failing or being rejected, or someone saying, no, I don't actually like that.
Yeah.
But you've been able to kind of keep persevering and putting yourself out there and believing in yourself. And when you have a failure, to adjust and put something else out there. I mean, you're obviously a pretty brave person to kind of do the things you've done, joining the military, being deployed, kind of pursuing these passions. I guess as we kind of wrap up here, is there any advice you would have to career seekers out there, whether they're just starting college or mid-career, but maybe have like more of this like creative bug? Like, what is some advice you give them to get going?
I think, like, if you want to like pursue a creative outlet, I think that's okay. I think an important factor is just to kind of talk to some people, like, especially like if there's someone that that has that, like, they've done this job, or you've got something in mind, at least talk to someone kind of that has an idea of how to do that. I mean, at the same time though, I think it's okay to have a career in mind that's not like a laid out career. Like, I think, like, especially with COVID, I think people are creating new like career pathways every day. I mean, more and more people are having to stay home with their kids, but at the same time having to figure out how to still have money coming in,
Right.
So I think it's okay to have an idea for a career that's outside of the box of what a typical 9-to-5 job would be.
Yeah. Right on. Thanks, Stacey. I appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And that was a conversation with Stacey Barker. I love what Stacey had to say about failure and moving on, especially for folks who are interested in things like creative careers. That, and just he kept going back to the idea that, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and perseverance and putting yourself out there. I think that's really important for folks thinking about a creative career is, a little bit of dedication and keep chipping away, and eventually you're going to carve out your spot as well. If you have more questions about how to carve out your career pathway, you can visit the Idaho State University Career Center at isu.edu/career. You can also catch all our past episodes of Pathways at kisu.org, as well as on Spotify and YouTube. Likewise, episodes run once a month, the second Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. From Pathways and the Idaho State University Career Center, this is Mark Beaver, wishing you a fantastic rest of your